So the VA Secretary Doug Collins just laid a bold and some say controversial plan to overhaul the entire VA system. We're talking mass layoffs, new healthcare strategies, more reliance on the private sector, and the promise that veterans' benefits will not be touched. But do you think this is actually going to be true? So Doug Collins was just on the Shawn podcast, and today I'm going to be referencing exactly what I spoke on because he has about a 2-hour interview with him, and it's going to be really interesting because Shawn Ryan, as he pointed out directly to him, you are speaking to me. I am the veteran that doesn't trust the VA. So a big part of this news and about every article is that they're going to be laying off 80,000 veterans within this year. And honestly, that's 15% of the VA workforce. But the plan here is to go back to the numbers that they had before COVID and before the PACT Act was initiated. So now when you look at the VA, there's 30% of the workers at the VA are veterans. So guess what? Some of these people are going to be veterans that are going to be cut. But as Collins states, he's cutting the bloated bureaucracy that we see and not the healthcare workers or the claims professionals that are actually helping veterans day to day. But here's the catch. Lawmakers and even veterans are actually pushing back on this. And these people are saying that the PACT Act put more veterans in the system and therefore the staff increase was needed. So if you take away the staff, but you have all these veterans in the system, what's going to happen with all this workload? And so the big question is, will this help or hurt the VA long term? I'm going to jump into some parts from the episode from Shawn Ryan. I'm not trying to play a political side to make him look good or bad. I'm going to give you the high level parts that I thought were really beneficial, and then we'll jump into what I think.
Veterans all over the country have been dying, waiting to get treatment. Commit suicide, dying, because they can't get. So with 480,000 VA, that's 30,000 more than the active Army members. Why can't they get in? Or why couldn't they get in?
Well, because a lot of it, think about that organizational structure. Where is most of that organizational structure going? I've been told since, we started the confirmation process and we started asking these questions, well, PACT Act did this. PACT Act forced us, and by the way, that was Biden, thought of it at State of the Union, a few months acted it, not really thinking about cost. And by the way, when the House and Senate, I speak Hill because I was up there for a long time. Here's what you do. You want to make somebody think you're doing something. You pass a bill, you leave a lot of the stuff in the middle, either unfunded or open-ended. You get the president to sign it, and then you declare it a victory. Never mind going to the actual agency that's going to have to do this and give them help and instructions on how to make it happen. But I was told that was why the monies and everything increased so much. Well, I've asked, where are these employees that were hired for PACT Act? I mean, if we've hired all these employees to do PACT, where are they at? And I only get one-off answers like, well, we've had to do something here. We can't. All right, I come here to share the truth. I'm just not BS anymore. I mean, I just can't. I don't know whatever. But I can't tell you where all 480,000 of those people are. I can't tell you. Now, here's the interesting issue. You were in the military. You were in the SEAL team. If you went to your commander or you went to your headquarters, headship, they could actually look down a list. They could pull every base. They could pull every unit. They could pull everything. And by the line item, tell you who was assigned where and what their billet number was, what their pass number was, and everything else. You would know exactly where they're at. I do not have an HR system that allows me easily to do that. Think about that for a second. Let that sink in when all these other issues we're talking about is out there. So I can't even, at this point, now I'm working on it. That's been one thing where I've already hit the ground running. I've got some people that are helping. We're going to try and fix that pretty quick. Because if I don't know where they are, then this organization is functionally not ready for action. It's just not.
Let's talk about the suicide.
Let's do.
What do you want to say about that?
Whatever we have been doing for the last 5 years, for whatever good there was, and there's been some, explain to me how in the past 5 years, 6 years of budgets, we've spent approximately $15 billion, and the number is basically unchanged. We spent $588 million, $588 million on preventive supposed suicide. We spend $2.3 billion in what we'll call treatment of either the mental aspect, health aspect of that, issues that they've had with hurting themselves, other things like that. $2.3 billion. So $3 billion total, roughly, in suicide. And yet our numbers are not changing, Shawn. We go from a low of about 6,400 up to almost 7,000 a year. Now, you made mention earlier of what's the real number. That's an arguable debate. And I've heard this, from others. It actually may be 25, 30. depending on how you classify overdose and how you, or also, frankly, in rural communities. I grew up in a rural community. Suicide is something you don't talk about, and you get some of these medical examiners and coroners in these smaller counties. They may not, they'll call it accidental or something else. So we may not know because it's just that stigma of suicide that's attached. So what I'm looking at here is what's actually working. What we're doing, frankly, in just all fairness, ain't working. You can't do that much this long and say it's working. So what we're trying to do now, and what I'm beginning to do, is I want to know why that $588 million is going for. I want to know what are we supposedly doing to, and don't just tell me you're putting a Facebook ad out there. Don't tell me that you're, running, the call the crisis line number out there, which are all fine and good. But where are we at actually hitting to the members who are listening to your podcast, who have no want to go to the VA? Because here's the other part of that. Whether the number's 17 or the number's 24 or even higher, the statistics are pretty good that said that 50% of those folks have never been touched by the VA. 50%. That's just unacceptable. So one of the things I'm starting right here with you, I'm starting with other things that we're going to be doing. I'm trying to reach that veteran who's sitting out there who's saying, screw the VA. I went over there one time and they didn't even treat me like I was human, or that was their perception. Look, everybody's got a perception. And, that may be your perception that you wasn't treated well. It may have been a bad day for them, bad day for you. But then they're sitting in their home and they're self-medicating, or they're, going off doing destructive things. They're going to end up to the point where they don't see a reason to go on. Mm-hmm. But if they listen to your podcast, they listen to somebody, I'm going to sit here and say, look, folks, let's get help. Let me send somebody. Go to an organization you trust. Call your battle buddy. Call your airman. Call your wingman, whoever it is. We got to get out of this stigma that we don't touch people that are saying they have problems. I mean, think about your friend that you just talked about. He's not going to run out in the front yard and say, hey, I'm really not able to function today. They're not going to do that. But we got to find them. We got to hit ways that people like his wife and others have the ability to reach out to somebody and say, here's real ways we can help.
Hope you're taking this in, because I am the guy you're trying to reach.
Yeah.
And not only would that work with the treatment, but it would also help build the trust back within the VA, because guys like me don't trust the VA. We just don't. Mm-hmm. But we do trust Tom Satterley, who is a retired Delta operator.
Yep.
He's seen it all. He has seen it all. And I know that he has my best interest because he's my friend, or my friend is his friend. And everybody looks up to guys like Tom or Marcus Capone, who's running vets.
Yep.
With the psychedelic stuff. It's if the VA can be an interim and say, yes, we're aware of what they're doing. They're on our list. We have a partnership with him. We want you to do that. Here, go.
Yep.
That is a big step in getting guys like me to trust the VA again.
Yep.
And then hopefully all these nonprofits can go away because the problem's solved.
Yep.
And once this shit's all passed through Congress, then we don't even need those nonprofits anymore, because hopefully they all wind up going away because the problem's fixed. But in the interim, it's a great way, one, to get the treatment, two, to build the trust back.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's what I want to look at. That's why I'm out in the field. That's why we're doing things like this. If at times 5 weeks feels like I've been there 5 years, and in 5 weeks I realize, my God, I've been there 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I've had to, in just in that amount of time, we've had to deal with our first start of contract looks where we went through 2% of our contracts, 2%, and found almost 580 billion, 900, $1.5 billion, about $1.5 billion that are contracts that were non-mission critical, non-mission essential. That's just in 2%. We've had to deal with that. I've had to deal with the probationary firings, which helped us begin this thing, get started. We're dealing with things, and you mentioned it earlier, by the way, we've had the issue of the flags. We've changed that policy so that we're back to one force under the American and POW flag. That's all we're doing. We've took the DEI out. We're doing that today. Even just as we're coming on, we changed the policy on transgender. You're not going to be getting your sex changed at the VA anymore. If you're currently in treatment, we're going to continue that what was started before we ever got there, just as the Sec Defs did in his side, but because we don't want anything bad to happen to somebody who's under those treatments. But from this point on, we're not changing your sex. We're going to treat you with respect and dignity if you come to the VA for your services, but we're just not going to be participating in changing your sex. That's not what our services are for, and everything that we're taking money-wise away to that would take away from money that I could be spending on something else that are helping vets directly who are not even getting primary health care. That's the things that we're looking at. So we're in the process of doing as much of this as we possibly can, and so we're taking every new idea. I'm taking it back. Our team is starting to process it. And we're working toward, this end of making it a much more accessible, much more idea friendly, if you would, VA. That restores trust. Had the experiences of being around the world, sitting with presidents and kings and doing things in Congress and being with a lawyer, helping people in court, standing beside them on their worst day and helping them out. I've had the privilege of pastoring a little church that grew into a little bit bigger church. I've had a wife that's been with me for 36, almost 37 years. We've been together 38. I have 3 kids. I'm at the point in my life where I want to help others get better. I'm at that point I want to turn around and say, for all this experience and where I've been, I want to make sure we're doing something right. I get as much joy out of somebody that's working for me coming to me and say, hey, we got this done. That's the celebration for me. Because I've really come to the conclusion over years of working this and believing this one statement that if I help enough people in life get what they want, I'll get what I want. Well, now we're in a place to really make this happen. So for me, I don't know what will happen if I get to stay for 4 years in this. I don't care. I get 4 years to make a difference in the life of my brothers and sisters and war fighters that gave something to this country. And now my job is to make sure that that country who promised them things, who set it up, actually does it. I can't think of a better calling. And I'll take the arrows. I'll take the slings. I'll go to Congress and have, the other side of the aisle yell at me and tell me I'm bad. That's fine. You come at me.
So despite the upheaval of changes, it sounds like Doug Collins really does care about the veteran community, and it sounds like benefits in 2025 at least are not going away and they're not getting lowered. So that's great. There's a lot of fear mongering online, and I hope that kind of alleviates some of it coming from the leadership himself. But I understand that there's always a concern. And I think for me, after watching the episode, the most impactful thing was Shawn Ryan really calling him out and saying, I go to these private places where I have friends that work in nonprofits that are helping veterans in my generation, the GWAT era. So as part of the overhaul, he really called them out and said, what do you do as the VA to help with the private sector if there's a place that I would rather go to? Why can't we figure this part out? And for Shawn Ryan, he's exploring the idea that he's had a lot of friends in heavy combat that have a lot of PTSD that go with ibogaine treatment, psychedelic treatment, and this is typically not grant funded. You can't really do it in the US unless it's research based, and the VA doesn't seem to have a pathway to use anything else except what you normally go through. But getting access to cutting edge treatment is something that I would personally love to support and see having a better option, because getting a prescription is one thing and having the cookie cutter options are great. They do help some people, but they don't help veterans that might have further issues or might want to just try a new source or a new way to do something. So the big question is, Doug Collins the guy to fix the VA, and are these changes actually going to help veterans long term? Because the other side of the coin is, with all these changes happening, what happens to the workload as it puts more pressure on people that are currently working there? That's the area that I understand from just being person in the workforce, having people get laid off and getting the workload onto me. I've experienced that personally, and I'm sure a ton of people have, and I wonder what that will create long-term for the VA. They save some money now, they restructure the VA, but what areas are going to be missed? And I think that's something that we're going to see in the future. If you'd like to share your thoughts below, I'd love to hear it. Comment below, like the video, and please subscribe. Really appreciate it. Thanks for watching.